Hare Krishna, welcome back to our continuing series of discussions on the Bhagavad Puran as part of our Bhakti Yoga journeys. So, as I discussed last time, we will continue with our discussions with the subsequent chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, last time we discussed chapter number 2 of the first canto. So, today we will discuss not just one specific verse, but an overall theme that comes in the in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Puran. So we'll try to take up this entire theme as part of today's discussion. So let's take it up. So yeah, let me just quickly adjust some lighting here. Okay, there you go. Okay, so today's specific chapter we will discuss. Let me just project it on the board. Yeah. So this is the verse that we are going to see. So this chapter is titled as Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And this is how the verse goes. Suta Uvacha Jagrihe Purusham Rupam Bhagavan Mahad Adipihi Sambhutam Shodasha Kalam Adau Loka Suskrashya. Suta said, in the beginning of creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnation and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus, at first, there was a creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universe. So, this is it's a long purport, and we'll just take up the first couple of lines and try to unpack them. The Bhagavad Gita states that the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna maintains these material universes by extending his plenary expansions. So this Purusha form is a confirmation of this principle. The original personality of Godhead Vasudeva or Lord Krishna, who's famous as the son of Vasudeva or King Nanda, is full with all opulence, all potencies, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Part of his opulences are manifested as impersonal Brahman, and part of his opulences are manifested as Paramatma. This Purusha feature of the same personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the original Paramatma manifestation of the Lord. And there are three Purushas features in the material creation in the form known as Karanodakshay Vishnu. The others are Garbhodakshay Vishnu and Kshirodakshay Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. Right? So, this specific chapter is titled as how Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And to understand the overall theme of this particular chapter, we need to ask ourselves an important question, right? So let me open the whiteboard so we can have a discussion in that regard. Okay. Okay, there you go. Okay, so here is a question for all of you to think about. In the last class, we discussed how, Vasudeva Para Veda, Vasudeva Para Makha, Vasudeva Para Yoga, how ultimately Vasudeva is that, or Supreme Lord Krishna, he is the ultimate goal of any modality of spirituality that we can think of, right? And so, now how does that connection, how does any kind of activity lead to that higher connection? Because it is Krishna who's present personally in all these activities. Whether one be engaged in Vedic study, Krishna is at Vedas. Whether one be engaged in some yogic activities, Krishna is that very modality of yoga. when one performs certain yajna, Krishna is that yajna, right? So this is where many people may mistake to think that yes, if Krishna is in everything, then is everything Krishna? Which means if there is a touch of divinity in everything, then should we start worshipping everything as divine? And isn't that the thought process of Vedic philosophy, right? In fact, many people they interpret Vedic dharma, Sanatan dharma, or popularly known as Hinduism today in the modern understanding, right? They identify Hinduism to be some kind of a polytheistic Hinduism, or Sanatana, or that's the technical word, Sanatana dharma or eternal dharma. Is it some kind of a polytheistic model? Polytheism means where the concept of multiple gods. In fact, many people, they interpret Vedic dharma as to be some kind of a polytheistic tradition. In fact, the popular definitions of Hinduism also, you will see, unlike many Abrahamic traditions, Hinduism has always been seen as a tradition where many entities are worshipped, right? And that's what polytheism means. Well, that is one particular viewpoint. But then, is that what even the previous section, the previous verse suggested? That yajna is also divine, yoga is also divine, Vedas are also divine, everything is divine, right? Ultimately, it doesn't matter what you do, whatever you do, finally you will reach your goal, right? Is that all roads lead to liberation or to some divine connection? Is that what it is suggesting, right? Or there is another interpretation, right? Especially this also you will see a lot with many modern day practitioners of let me use the word here, modern Hinduism, right? There's nothing called as modern Sanatan dharma, right? The modern interpretation of Hinduism, right? Which the term that best captures it, it's called as henotheism. Henotheism means how there are multiple gods, but I, or we as a collective, we worship only one God. Right? In fact, if you ask any modern day practitioner of Hinduism, this is probably the answer you will see from them, that so many gods are there in India, but my favorite god is Lord Ram, or Lord Shiva, or Ganesha, or Devi, Kartikeya. So there are so many options. So one may pick. In fact, sometimes certain beginners or neophytes, even in Vaishnava traditions also, they may have this kind of an understanding, right? Especially those raised in a more traditional Indian setup and somehow made their way into some kind of a Vaishnava tradition like ISKCON, right? They will have understanding that, actually, there's so many gods, but right now I like to worship Krishna. They even put Krishna also in the same category of this henotheistic category where, there are all these multiple gods, but I personally, right now, I like to worship Lord Krishna. So that is one interpretation of, the Vedic dharma, right? Or let me introduce another philosophy, which is more popular, which is monotheism. What is monotheism? That there is only one God. and all others are false. Right? Now, this mentality may also come up. And sometimes even among spiritualists also, this mentality also may come up, where due to the the income, almost sometimes even fanatic understanding of fanatic spirituality, due to some kind of a fanatic understanding of the Siddhanta, one may misunderstand the concept of the absolute truth and say there is only this one God, and one may even say that one God is Krishna, everybody else is false, to the point, and that can sometimes be very offensive. One may even look down upon other forms of Krishna as, say, Narayan, as Lord Ram, or even expansions like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, and so on. So this is also some kind of a limited understanding. This is also not the correct understanding, right? Because the Vedic Dharma is neither polytheistic, it's not henotheistic, it's not even monotheistic, right? So what is a proper understanding? So what is the most accurate description of the Vedic Dharma, right? It is what can be best represented as polymorphic monotheism, right? Polymorpha. So means how there are these multiple forms, multiple morpha forms of the one absolute truth. This is probably the most accurate description of the Vedic Dharma, where we are talking about this one absolute truth who exists, right? But that one absolute truth takes up to multiple forms for different reasons that we are going to discuss now, right? He takes up to multiple forms for a different reason, and these forms are simultaneously one and different. This is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achintya Ved philosophy also very accurately captures this part. And this theme of polymorphic monotheism is what that is being highlighted in this third chapter. Because in the second chapter, we understood the concept of absolute truth. If you remember, in our second class in the series of discussions, we understood how that one absolute truth is understood as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. So there is this only one absolute truth. And the highest dharma is connecting to that absolute truth in the mood of loving devotion, in bhakti. That's how the higher paro dharma has been described, that ahetuki apratihata bhakti. And in the last discussion, we saw how ultimately we need to make the absolute truth, Krishna, Vasudeva, as our ultimate goal, right? So if you have to make him that ultimate goal, are we limiting the concept of absolute truth to one of these, either a fanatic understanding as monotheism, or some kind of how there are multiple gods, but we are obsessed with only one god, henotheistic concept, or there are so many gods, like as in polytheistic understanding. What is a viewpoint that Bhagavatam gives, right? And this is an important concept, and this is where the concept of avatars, polymorphic monotheism, multiple forms or multiple avatars come in. Now, the word avatara is a very, very specific word. Avatar, many times the word is loosely translated as incarnation in many English translations, because a lot of these spiritual terminologies have been borrowed from from the Abrahamic traditions, where according to Abrahamic traditions, the Holy Spirit takes to the body of flesh, carnivore. It takes a body of flesh. So when something divine manifests on earth, someone divine manifests on earth, they take up to a form of flesh. That's where the term incarnation has come into the Abrahamic traditions. And avatars sounded similar to that. So many of the original translators, wearing the lens of the Abrahamic theology, they translate as incarnation and that word carried forward. But literally the word avatar means something higher has come down to our plane, or something like to descend, right? To descend for a specific purpose. So without understanding for what purpose a particular form of the Lord exists, the concept of avatara cannot be understood, and the concept of polymorphic monotheism can also not be understood, right? So now what we will try to do is, we will try to understand what is the Bhagavatam's understanding of this polymorphic monotheism, right? And in this chapter, it introduces the concept called as Swayam Bhagavan. Swayam Bhagavan. Swayam Bhagavan. So Swayam means, himself. Bhagavan, the Supreme Person. So put together, Swayam Bhagavan means the Supreme Person himself in his original self-same form, right? So this original personality, the Lord in his self-same form, he manifests broadly in two dimensions. The first, he manifests in his spiritual abode, in Goloka, in Vaikuntha, and so on, right? And he also manifests in the material world. In the spiritual abode, the absolute truth, the Swayam Bhagavan, he manifests first in his self-same form called as Swayam Rupa. Swayam Rupa means his self-same form, means as it is, as his original form, right? So when you see Krishna is present in Goloka, in his actual form, playing the flute, wearing his peacock feather, in his yellow color dhoti, right? So those depictions that we hear and we read, they are Krishna in his spiritual abode, in his Swayam Rupa, in his self-same form. Then there are also other forms of Krishna. They are known as Tad Ekatma Rupa. Ekatma Rupa, right? Which are Eka Atma Rupa. They are the self-same form, but there are certain different bodily features. The same, but different bodily features. Meaning, for example, sometimes you will see Lord Narayan, right? Lord Narayan is technically same as Krishna, but you'll see Lord Narayan has 4 hands. Why? Because when Krishna goes to office, he wears the dress of Narayan and he goes that way. So that is an example of Tadekatma Rupa, right? Same, but different body. In fact, same in terms of the potency, almost same in terms of the potencies, but there are some differences in terms of the bodily features, right? But within this Tadekatma Rupa, there are again 2 more categories called as Vilasa Rupa, and there are Swamsha Rupa. So Vilasas are, like I mentioned, almost same powers. Like the example I gave of Lord Narayan is in the category of that Vilasa. And there are Swamsha Rupas are, sometimes they have lesser powers. So the other different aspects in Vaikuntha Loka, sometimes Lord manifests, right? Sometimes as Matsya Avatara and so on. So they have lesser powers, right? Then there's a third category of the Lord form known as Avesha. Aveshas, sometimes the Lord, these are empowered personalities, right? Like, for example, Narada is one such personality who's present in the spiritual dimension also, but he is actually an empowered personality. It is Lord Krishna who empowered Narada with, he's a personification of the bhakti potency of the Lord. Or the four Kumaras, headed by the Sanat Kumara, they are the incarnation, they are the empowered embodiment of Krishna's knowledge potency, the Jnana potency, right? So Narada, the four Kumaras, right? Or another example, Rupa Goswami quotes Ananta Sesha, the Adisesha, who is the bedstead of Lord Vishnu, right? He is an expansion of Lord Vishnu, right? But he is there in the mood of a servant, right? So these are Aveshas. So Kumaras, Anantasesha, for Narada, they all come in that particular category known as the empowered personalities. So these are all the spiritual expansions, right? There is a small subcategory. These are called as Prakasha Rupas. Prakasha Rupas are sometimes the Lord, for the sake of a specific pastime, he expands himself simultaneously into multiple places. Like, for example, simultaneous expansion in multiple places. Sometimes they may have same form, sometimes he may have a different form. Like, for example, Narad Muni, it is said that when he went to Dwaraka, he saw Lord Krishna. He was in all the 16,108 palaces of each and every queen. Krishna was personally present, right? So these are same Krishna, right? So even though there is this one Swayam Rupa, one self-same form, but for the sake of that particular interaction with all his concerts simultaneously, Krishna expands, right? So even though it is the same person, but for that particular moment, he expands simultaneously multiple forms. So these are all the different, forms of the Lord you will see in the spiritual abode. What about the Lord in the material abode, right? And in fact, specifically in this particular purport that we read, Prabhupada spoke about these Purusha avatars. Right? So Purusha means literally the enjoyer. So what are they enjoying? What are they controlling? The material world, the material energy. So the Lord directly does not intervene with the hands-on nitty-gritties of the material creation, but through these Purusha avatars, he causes the whole show to run. And specifically, these Purusha avatars, as Prabhupada pointed out in the purport, so there is Karanodakshai Vishnu, Karana Udaka Shai, one who is shy, lying down on the Karana Sagara or the causal ocean. Karunodaka Shai Vishnu, sometimes also referred to as Mahavishnu. Right? It is this, from this body of Mahavishnu, it is described that he is lying down in Yoga Nidra and running the whole show. And from his pores of his body, from every pore, one universe expands. So literally, as he exhales, all the multiverses expand out of his body. And as he inhales, all the universes go back. So the billion, trillion, zillions of years that the universe exists is just one breath cycle of Lord Mahavishnu, right? And as he's creating and annihilating, absorbing these universes, once he creates, he personally expands into each and every universe into who is known as Garbha Udaka Shai. Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu, right? So he is you can say he is the literally the soul of the whole universe, right? So we can call him as the soul of the universe, of that particular universe, soul of that particular. So into each and every one of the innumerable universes that Mahavishnu breathes out, into each of those, Mahavishnu expands, or Karnadaksha Vishnu expands into the form known as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And the classical depiction you might have seen where Lord Garbhodaksha Vishnu is lying down, and from his navel sprouts a lotus, and on top of the lotus is Brahmaji residing, and the entire universe is said to be occupying that particular space along the stem of the stalk of that lotus, right? So that whole depiction, if you have seen, right, that is a description of the Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And the same Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he expands, also known as Kshira Udakasai Vishnu or Kshirodakashai Vishnu. Right? Who eventually expands as the Paramatma into each and every living entity, into the heart of each and every. He is the one who's giving consciousness to every living entity, right? So there is his own embassy within each universe that Garbhodaksha Vishnu creates. Within that, there is one particular embassy known as the Kshira Sagara, the ocean of milk, right? And in that is the abode of the Supreme Lord Paramatma as Kshirodaksha Vishnu. So these Purusha Avataras, basically what are they doing? They are ensuring that the creation, this material creation, this whole universe, it goes on smoothly. So their role is very, very specific, connected to the, to create the strata, the foundational layer for the entire universe to function. I'm using very specific choice of words. I'm not saying they are creating, maintaining, or destroying the universe. That will come next category of avatars. They are creating the strata, the foundation on which these three activities happen. Then who is doing the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe, right? So they are known as the Guna Avataras. So the Guna Avataras, so we know they are the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So each of these three gunas, so the creation, which is a function of Rajas, is done by the Lord's Gunavatara known as Brahma. Then the maintenance, which is a function of Sattva, is done by the Lord's. So we usually use the word Vishnu, right? So we are referring to the Kshirodaksha Vishnu here. Then there is a destruction, because destruction also is a very important phase. Without destruction, there cannot be recreation, right? So which is a guna of tamas, which is controlled by Lord Shiva. So these three, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are also referred to as the Gunavataras of the Lord. So by controlling these three gunas, they are creating, maintaining, and destroying the whole creation. So the whole show is practically run by these three personalities, right? Then there are something called as Lila Avataras. So whenever there is some kind of a disturbance in this world, or whenever there's a need to protect a devotee, the Lord personally comes from his spiritual abode into this material world. While he is present as the three Vishnus, three Purusha Avataras, while he is present as the creator, maintainer, and destroyer as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, he comes specifically to perform very, very unique pastimes. So the Lord who descends to perform unique pastimes, right? So specifically in this particular chapter, we will see a list of different Leela Avataras. In fact, we are going to see a list of all of them. We are going to hear about Guna Avataras, Purusha Avataras, Lila avatars, all of them, right? But specifically this chapter gives a list of many such Lila avatars, right? So usually when we use the word avatar or an incarnation of the Lord, we many times loosely refer to actually the Lila avatars, right? So Lord comes for a particular pastime. He comes as Vamana, he comes as Narsimha into this world to perform a particular Lila, right? So these are specifically the Lila avatars. They come, perform that Lila, and then they wind up that Lila. Then, unlike the Purusha avatars and Guna avatars, they are permanently there. They are, literally their job description is bound to this material world, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva are not going anywhere. The three Purusha avatars, Karno Dakshaya, Garbho Dakshaya, they are not going anywhere. The material world will go through its cycles of creation, maintenance, destruction. They are permanently there. The Lila avatars, they come and they go away after performing their Lila. Then there is another category. They are called as Manvantara avatars. So Manvantaras, so the Vedic cosmological time has been divided into different categories, and during each phase of time, it is ruled by one empowered personality named as Manu, right? Maybe you must have heard the famous, or I don't know, not so famous book known as, infamous book known as the Manu Smriti, which many times people try to dig into a lot of controversies from that book, right? So Manu basically is that particular ruler of that particular large phase of time. And whenever there is one particular Manu, right, there is Ishwaku Manvantara, Vivaswan Manvantara, and so on, the different Manus. So during this particular phase, the Lord also comes. Usually he is born in the Devata Lokas, born among the demigods. And for example, our Vaman Dev was born as a son of Aditi, as the brother of Indra. So like that. So Manvantara Avataras is one specific category of the Lord's incarnation who comes during a particular phase of the Manus. Then there are also what are known as the Yuga Avataras. Right? Yuga Avataras means, again, every millennium, like we know the 4 yugas, there is the Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. In every yuga also specifically the Lord comes in his different forms, right? Sometimes there is a Yajna Purusha. We know in the Kali Yuga, the Yuga Avatara is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, he is more of he is a secret incarnation, the Guhya Avatara, right? So like that. So every yuga also has one particular avatar. So if you see now, such broadness, such variety exists in the concept of avatars. That is why when we define the term earlier as how the Vedic philosophy is not, the polytheism and monotheism is such black and white understanding of the philosophy. It is polymorphic monotheism. How? For the sake of different functions, either as the Purusha avatars to ensure that the creation is taking place, to create the foundation ingredients for the material creation, or to specifically take those ingredients and to create, maintain, or to destroy the Guna avatars, or sometimes to specifically enact a particular pastime, or sometimes according to different phases of time, or in the spiritual abode also as a Vilasa Rupas, as Swamsha Rupas. So there's a whole variety of understanding in the concept of the absolute truth. So we cannot oversimplify, right, this whole understanding of avatars and, there is only one God, right? So at one level, in terms of the activities, there is a lot of difference between each of these different forms of the Lord. And also sometimes there's difference in the mood, right? For example, the mood of Krishna and the mood of Lord Narayan, though it is the same personality, but Tadekatma Rupa, but still they have different moods. So that way, this is the fine nuances a Vedic practitioner needs to understand. Why do we need to understand all this? Because our connection to the Lord determines our destination. So the Bhagavad Puran in this particular chapter, it lists all these different avatars, right? Something I leave it for you all to study on your own. You can at least read the translations of the third chapter, right? After giving a whole list of different avatars, he gives one very interesting word saying, Ete chamsa kala pumsham Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Right? So let me share that particular verse also on the screen, right? Let me quickly find that verse for you. Yeah. So maybe if you guys like, I can quickly run through the whole list of incarnations also that are mentioned. So let me share the screen. Hold on. Okay, let's just quickly run through them. So we read text number 1, right? Then there is a part of that Purusha lies down in the water of the universe. So we spoke about Garbhodaksha Vishnu, from whose navel the lotus stem comes and Brahmaji comes, right? So then there is a description how it is believed that all the universal planetary systems are situated on the extensive body of this particular Purusha. Therefore, we said how he's the soul of this universe. Then he talks about the Lord's in creation. Then there's a secondary manifestation of Purusha. He talks a little bit more about the Purusha avatars. Then again, now the first of all, the beginning of creation, there were these 4 Kumaras who being situated in vows of celibacy. So this is also the Jnana, the Prakashas, the Avesha avatars I mentioned about the 4 Kumaras. Then the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices accept the incarnation of the boar. So the Varaha avatara, that is also one particular avatara, the Lord as boar. Then in the millennium of the Rishis, the personality of God had accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Devarshi Narada. Narada also, remember, we discussed him as an Avesha. He collected all the Vedas and which deal with the devotional service which inspire non-fruitive action. Then in the fourth incarnation, he took the forms of Nara and Narayana. So Nar Narayan Rishis who are celebrated even today in the modern day Rishikesh and in Badrikashram. The fifth incarnation, named Lord Kapila, is foremost among the perfected beings, right? So he gave the Sankhya philosophy. Then the sixth incarnation of the Purusha was the son of the sage Atri, basically as Lord Dattatreya. He is being spoken of. Then the seventh incarnation of Yagya, remember I mentioned about he's one specific, he comes in the category of the Yuga Avatara. Then there is the eighth incarnation was the King Rishabha. So Rishabh Dev, all these personalities are also described, excuse me, later on in Bhagavatam. Then Prithu Maharaj is also, he's also an Avesha. He embodies the administration or the ruling potency of the Supreme Lord. Then there was a complete inundation of the period of Chakshusha Manu, during which the Lord accepted the form of fish, the Matsya Avatara, to protect Vaivatsvata Manu, keeping him on a boat. So in fact, this episode sounds very similar to the biblical story of the Noah's Ark. So it has its origins in this particular episode as Lord as Matsya Avatara and Vaivatsvata Manu. Then as Kurma Avatara, where he took the form of tortoise shell, right? Then there is Lord Dhanvantari, who celebrated during the churning of the milk ocean. Lord Dhanvantari, who came out and he gave us the science of Ayurveda. So he's also one such incarnation. Then Lord Narsimha is being described. Then Lord Vamana is described. Then Lord came as Bhrugupati, as a Parshuram. He came and he put all the Kshatriyas in place. Then the Lord came as Vyasa. So Vyasa is also a powerful Avesha, Shaktavesha avatar. He is a literary incarnation of the Lord, presenting all the Vedas in a very nice, tangible format. Then it talks about Lord Rama, who's another wonderful Lila avatara. Then finally it says, then in the 19th and 20th incarnation, the Lord advented himself as Lord Balarama and Krishna in the family of Vrishnis, and by doing so, he removed the burden of this world. Then the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha. So even Lord Buddha is also described. However, it is described, he's a son of Anjana, born in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful thieves. So Lord Buddha, though he's an incarnation of the Lord, we don't follow his teachings because the purpose of his appearance is also very different. That's why understanding the signs of avatars means also understanding the mood and the purpose why a particular avatara has manifested. Like that. Then about the Kalki avatara is also being described and so on, right? And this is an important verse. So 2 points at this point. One, we may think, oh, are these the only list of avatars? Then what about the popular understanding of the Dashavataras, the 10 incarnations, starting from the Matsya Avatara, Kurma Avatara, Varaha Avatara, Narsingha Avatara, Vamana, Parshurama, Rama, Balarama, Krishna, Buddha, Kalki, and so on. What about the Dashavataras? So the Dashavataras is a concept that has been popularized by a great Vaishnava poet saint named Jayadev Goswami. He wrote this beautiful composition known as Gita Govinda. And in that Gita Govinda, in one of the first chapters, he writes this entire Dashavatara Stotra, glorifying 10 special incarnations of the Lord with the intention to say, oh, Keshava Rupa. So every line he says, oh, Keshava Rupa, Haladara Rupa, Keshava Dhita, Kurma Sharira, Narahari Rupa. So it is Keshava, oh Krishna, you have manifested in all these different forms. So it's just one very famous. And when that became famous, the concept of Dashavataras became famous, and people started thinking that, oh, there are only these 10 incarnations of the Lord. But that's not true. In fact, as this particular says, Avatara hi asankheya. O Brahmanas, as Sutta Goswami is addressing to the sages of Naimisharanya, the incarnation of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water. So how many ripples exist in an ocean? Nobody knows. So many incarnations of the Lord exist, right? But this is the most important verse. Ete chamsha kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Right? So among all these, of all the above mentioned incarnations and their plenary portions or portions of their plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on this planet. Whenever there is disturbance created by the atheists, the Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Right? So this is the important verse of this particular chapter. We'll elaborate more on this specific verse in our next discussion. But this particular drawing that we made is very important. Now, when we go back to our whiteboard, you will see so when you go back to our whiteboard, you will see how this Swayam Bhagwan, this specific word that is used, Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsham, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So the Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, how he expands into all these different incarnations, all these different avatars, all these different expansions. Sometimes when Prabhupada in the translation used expansions, portions of expansions or plenary portion. These are all the terms, little technical terms used. Plenary expansions means they are all on the same plane, right? Same plane means sometimes you will see in a board meeting, all the board members and the CEO they're all sitting in the same post, same table at the same level, right? So just because they're sitting at the same level, nevertheless, the CEO has a veto power, which we can overrule the other board members, right? Something like that. So even though all these are, plenary expansions, but nevertheless, Krishna is the source of all of them. Another example that comes in Brahma Samhita is how sometimes there are multiple candles you will see, lit up in one place, like 1,000 candles have been lit up in one place, right? But for all those 1,000 candles, there must have been one first candle that lit all the other candles, or which was used to light other candles and and so on. To start that whole lighting process, there must have been one original source of light. That original source of light is Krishna. That is how Brahma Samhita also gives this particular example, right? So this is how the Bhagavatam, it explains that, as we discussed even last time, that the Swayam Bhagavan Krishna should be the object of our devotional meditation, right? That is the mood of Bhagavatam. In fact, as you will see, as the chapters of Bhagavatam will proceed, they're all taking us closer and closer and closer. Bhagavatam is going to describe about the Purusha Avtaras. Bhagavatam is going to talk about Guna Avtaras, all the different Lila Avtaras, all the different pastimes connected, the Leelas connected to different Lila Avtaras, all the Manvantaras, Yuga Avtaras, they all will be described. But while describing all of them, Bhagavatam will try to inspire a mood of devotion, ultimately culminating to bring us to the point of entering into the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, where we will talk about Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. Right? That is the beauty of Bhagavatam. It does not want, just because Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, doesn't mean you straight away jump into the 10th canto. Bhagavatam prepares you to systematically understand all these different moods, all these different forms of the Lord, but with the intention of cultivating devotion, pure devotion, and then ultimately come to the stage of entering into, because when you understand, to enter into the mood of Vrindavan, you cannot artificially imitate that mood of Vrindavan, mood of that pure devotion, right? In fact, Prabhupada elsewhere in one purport, he writes, before you understand Krishna's sweet pastimes in Vrindavan, you should understand Krishna's great pastimes of creation. Right? Before Rasa Lila, we should understand Krishna's Srishti Lila. Srishti means the creation pastime. How he creates, and more so, why he creates. Right? When we understand all this, then we will be able to understand the greatness of Krishna, and as we evolve through that greatness, the sweetness naturally manifests. We cannot artificially imitate the sweetness of bhakti. We go through this, we purify our heart by understanding all these different aspects, different forms of the absolute truth Krishna. Thereby, we prepare our heart to enter into that mood of the sweetness of Vrindavan. Therefore, do not think that these concepts are all just some technical jargon and they're just some boring concepts. Let me go straight away to the different stories of Krishna, right? So it doesn't work that way. Then we are not in the mood of Bhagavatam, right? We are just trying to make devotional process very cheap, right? So that's the understanding which we'll get from this particular chapter. Okay, so let me pause our discussion here. Let's open the forum for any quick questions or comments. We have around 7 minutes. If somebody wants to unmute themselves, ask any questions, please feel free to do so. I know it's a fairly technical discussion today, but if you want to type your questions in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask any questions, please feel free to do so.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Apurva, go ahead.
You mentioned about Kshirodakshai Vishnu, so I was a little confused at this point. Does Kshirodakshai Vishnu expand as Paramatma, or is he Paramatma?
So it is the Kshirodaksha Vishnu who is present in his spiritual abode. He expands personally as Paramatma present in your heart. Right? So that is the understanding, right? Because he is there in his, while simultaneously being present in his abode, he is also present as the source of consciousness within each and every heart, accompanying the soul. So he is present personally as Paramatma, as an expansion as Paramatma. Okay.
Prabhuji, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So when Krishna personally descends in the material world, so is there a Prakash Rupa in the spiritual world? Or yes, can you please clear this?
Yeah, okay, good question. So when Krishna comes personally, does he disappear from the spiritual world? Right? Does he like suddenly mark, hey guys, I'm going on a vacation, I'm on leave, so don't look for me in Goloka. If you want me, I will come to India, or he'll give the coordinates of where is Bhumandal in the universe, which particular universe, and in Bhumandal where is Bharatavarsha, in Bharatavarsha what is the longitude and latitude of Vrindavan, you can come and meet me there. Right? No, it's not like that. Goloka eva nivasati akhilatma bhuta. While being present in the spiritual world, he also is present, right? Because he transcends time. Time limits our presence in multiple spaces. But because Krishna transcends time, he can be present there and here, right? Simultaneously, right? So he is sometimes present indirectly through his different expansions, different forms, as we saw, and or sometimes is also directly present here. Okay. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the amazing lecture, as always. As you were talking about the first statement with which you opened the class, that if Krishna is in everything, then does it mean that everything is in Krishna? Brought a question to my head. So if everything is in Krishna, then why are there bad people? Why there are Kauravas and Pandavas? If Krishna is present in everyone's heart, right? If there is this small incarnation of him in all of us, why do we do bad things, and why there are bad things that happen? I understand there is a concept of free will, right? But isn't that memory, that presentness, the awareness of Krishna, shouldn't it be stronger than all the other gunas which are at play?
See, sun is there everywhere, but you have you make a decision to be out in the sunlight or hide yourself in the room. When somebody is hiding themselves in a dark room, you cannot blame the sun. Sun is very neutrally giving its sunlight everywhere, right? So this is what the covering potency, when we say the word Maya as covering the consciousness of the jiva, or avidya covering the consciousness of jiva, this is what happens. So yes, as that is why the statement, while Krishna is present in everything, everything is not Krishna. Therefore, we don't worship a demoniac person, because even though Krishna is present as the pure consciousness within the heart of that particular entity, they are channeling their consciousness through tamogun, through destructive energy, through toxic energy. The moment they purify their heart and remove that layer of tamas and bring out the pure consciousness, then they are beyond the worldly right and wrong. Mind you, I'm using the word worldly right and wrong. Even the so-called good people of this world also, they're just channelizing the pure consciousness through sattva. Even that is nothing holy. Sattva is as binding to this material world as tamas. So we are here to transcend the gunas, transcend both sattva and tamas, and rajas, of course, right? So the concept of worldly right and wrong are purely the product of the interaction of the gunas, right? So even though it's just like, the pure light is there, but the light is being tainted with different colors right now. So you cannot blame the light. Just peel off those layers, peel off those material coverings, and let the pure light of the soul come out. Then you will see, then there is no more duality of worldly right and wrong in that case.
But those gunas, they also come from that light, right? All the three gunas, like you mentioned, they all come, they're guna avatars, right? Oh, no, sorry, no? Yeah, guna avatars.
Right?
Yeah. So why so that darkness also in some way, or that that tamasic energy also comes from Krishna?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Because, and this is where the concept of, these are the relevant questions This is literally what this particular chapter of Bhagavatam is trying to answer. Let's try to take a counter view which will highlight the right answer. For example, in many popular world traditions, good and evil are seen as two equally powerful entities, right? Like there is God and there is Satan, right? There is this Allah and there is Shaitan, right? And many times they are seen as these two equally powerful dual forces. Both, if God is trying to pull your consciousness towards the right side, the devil is trying to pull your consciousness, and equally they are projected. But there is no concept of devil or Satan in the Vedic understanding. Satan is your forgetfulness of Krishna. Maya, darkness, is not a separate entity. It's just absence of light. Right? So shadow is not a separate entity. When you turn away from light, what you will see is shadow behind you. When you turn towards light, there is no more a shadow. So this darkness, right? So are you saying light is a source of darkness? From that perspective, yes. But is light intentionally causing that darkness? No. Is light intentionally forcing me to remain in darkness? No. That's where the choice comes. Otherwise, if you just say that, oh, because Krishna created this world, everybody should be good, right? Why did he create, or why did he allow people to be wicked? Because he doesn't want to create zombies. He doesn't want to create robots. He wants to create sentient beings. Because for that love to exist, free will has to exist. Without free will, there is no question of love. Therefore, in fact, the whole creation, of course, this is a topic which we'll elaborate more in the second canto when we come, but, jumping ahead of the gun right now, creation exists not because a creator wants to create. Rather, creation exists because you and I wanted to be in this world. You and I wanted to a place where we can project our egos in the forefront. To facilitate that egoistic jiva, the egoistic need of the jiva, the Lord creates this whole shabam called as this material world. Otherwise, and that's why, again, this is again a slightly broader explanation, where in the broader world philosophies, there's a concept called as immanent God and transcendent God. Immanent means God is in the creation, God is the creation. There's nothing beyond it. Right? Many pre-Abrahamic traditions had this understanding. Then there's the transcendent God, means God is there somewhere in his abode, happily enjoying his life. This world is completely separated from him, and he created this world to punish all of them, all of us, because of some sin, the original sin that somebody else did. Right? So the Vedic understanding is neither transcendent God nor immanent God. He is both. As we saw, the left side column, the spiritual expansions are all transcendent gods. And the material avatars, they are all, or the avatars of the Lord in the material world, they are all immanent gods. Right? So even the material elements also have a touch of divinity in them. So the whole creation has been made not because God wants to punish us, see us, enjoy seeing us suffering, ha ha ha, let me see how you will come out of this challenge. No, but rather you and I are embracing this darkness because we have turned away. Right? So because we have turned away from Krishna Bahirmukh, we have turned away from the sun like Krishna, we are only seeing darkness. All we need to do is turn our face towards the path of light, towards the truth. And then we will overcome this darkness. All right. Okay, so let's end our discussion here. If there are no further comments, yeah, let's end it here. So thank you all so much once again for joining us this week. So we'll continue next week with another verse from this particular chapter. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.